Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going way beyond surface-level health advice. We're diving into an ultra-deep, evidence-based masterclass on the interconnected biological web of the human body. We often tend to think of our physical health, our micromental health, our sleep optimization, and our cognitive performance as completely separate buckets. But modern science? It reveals they are all intricately linked, and they're governed by one ancient systemic imperative: sunlight. Our biology is, fundamentally, solar-powered. Yet we're living in an era of unprecedented indoor isolation. And this isolation is actively eroding our modern productivity, it's crushing our cognitive endurance, and it's completely dysregulating our stress responses.
And this brings us to a really staggering epidemiological paradox. For decades, the mainstream message has been super simple, right? Avoid the sun. But as our modern lifestyles have driven us increasingly indoors, surrounded by digital overload, chronic stress, and artificial light, researchers started noticing these unexpected, massive population-level health declines. So we really have to ask the question, is total sun avoidance actually as dangerous to our longevity as smoking? Well, the data we're about to unpack is going to challenge absolutely everything you think you know about healthy aging and cellular resilience.
Take a look at this. This is landmark research from the Melanoma in Southern Sweden cohort, led by Dr. Pelle Lindqvist. They found something incredible. Women who actively seek out the sun were actually at a demonstrably lower risk for cardiovascular disease and non-cancer diseases. In fact, complete avoidance of sun exposure was identified as an independent risk factor for all-cause mortality. This completely flips our modern understanding on its head. The people getting the most sun were actually living longer. So here is our roadmap for today. First, the sunlight health paradox. Second, heart health and nitric oxide. Third, brain chemistry and mental health. Fourth, sleep optimization and circadian rhythms. And finally, number 5, the modern solar protocol. Let's trace exactly how a single photon of light triggers a massive biological cascade across your entire body.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the sunlight health paradox. We need to clear up a huge modern misconception right out of the gate. In our quest for absolute convenience, we've kind of tried to biohack our way out of nature. We assume that just popping a supplement can perfectly replace an entire environmental stimulus. But look at this profound clinical divergence. In a major 6-month trial, researchers compared direct sunlight exposure against oral vitamin D supplements. Now, both groups successfully raised their blood vitamin D levels, but the sunlight group, they saw a significant decline in LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol. The pill group actually saw an increase in total cholesterol. Here's why. Both cholesterol and vitamin D share a common precursor in your skin. When UV light hits it, boom, it becomes vitamin D. Without that light, an enzyme just converts it right into cholesterol. A pill simply cannot replicate the metabolic magic of natural light. Our cardiovascular system is deeply, deeply dependent on these environmental cues. Moving right along to section 2, heart health and nitric oxide. This is where we uncover the hidden non-vitamin D mechanisms of sunlight.
To put this into perspective, cardiovascular disease accounts for a massive 30% of all global deaths. High blood pressure is literally the leading global risk factor for disability and death. And fascinatingly enough, blood pressure is universally higher in the winter and in countries further away from the equator. This isn't just about it being cold outside, it's heavily about the absence of light.
The secret to this lies in something called the cutaneous nitric oxide pathway. Basically, your skin stores massive amounts of preformed nitrogen oxides. When ultraviolet A light hits the skin, and just to be super clear here, UVA is fundamentally different from the UVB rays that cause the DNA damage associated with sunburns. It acts like a chemical key. It photochemically liberates these stored compounds, turning them into active nitric oxide, which is a really powerful signaling molecule.
So, let's break down exactly how this builds. First, the UVA light hits the upper layers of your skin. Second, that preformed nitric oxide is mobilized and rushes straight into your systemic circulation. Third, once it's in the bloodstream, it causes your blood vessels to dilate. And fourth, this acute vasodilation significantly lowers your resting blood pressure and reduces systemic stress. This is literally healthy aging happening in real time. You're effectively calming your autonomic nervous system just by standing outside. How cool is that?
Okay, section 3, brain chemistry and mental health. Because sunlight doesn't just relax our blood vessels, it profoundly alters our brain.
Researchers at Harvard Medical School discovered something absolutely incredible. When UV light hits your skin, it produces a protein called POMC. This protein is then cleaved to release beta endorphins directly into your bloodstream. Yes, we are talking about the exact same feel-good endorphins you get from a runner's high. It creates this organic, mild opioid-like effect. From an evolutionary standpoint, we're physically wired to crave the sun, so we ensure we get enough vitamin D for our bone health. But wait, it gets better. POMC also yields alpha-MSH, which is a hormone that suppresses appetite in the brain's hypothalamus. This shows a direct biological link between daytime sunlight and intuitive eating behaviors. It's a crucial built-in defense against modern metabolic dysfunction.
Now, the old hypothesis was that sunlight just makes you sleep better, and then that better sleep makes you happier, right? Well, scratch that. The data showed something entirely different. In a 7-day study tracking adults, sunlight's effect on mood that was mediated by sleep was literally zero. Zero. Instead, direct sunlight was the strongest independent predictor of daily mood. The light travels through the eye, hits the retinal-raphe tract, and triggers immediate daytime serotonin release. This completely bypasses the sleep centers to fuel your deep work, your neuroplasticity, and your cognitive endurance right then and there. Which brings us to Section 4, Sleep Optimization and Circadian Rhythms, because that daytime brain chemistry is the absolute foundation for your night.
You see, you cannot fix your sleep at 10 p.m. You fix your sleep at 8 a.m. Think of it as a domino effect. Morning light hits the retina. This signals the brain to release that daytime serotonin, your primary focus and mood neurotransmitter. You spend your entire day building up a massive pool of this serotonin. Then, when your brain's master clock senses evening darkness, it signals the pineal gland. And the pineal gland physically converts that exact daytime serotonin pool into melatonin. If you don't get bright natural light during the day, you simply don't have the raw materials, the serotonin, required to build the melatonin you need for deep, restorative sleep at night.
So timing is absolutely everything here. If we want to optimize this, we have to look at the data. A massive epidemiological study from Brazil tracked exactly how sunlight exposure at different times of the day impacted sleep architecture. They categorized it into before 10 a.m., midday, and after 3 p.m.
And they found a real game changer. Notice this 23-minute metric. The study found that for every 30 minutes of morning sun exposure, specifically before 10 a.m., your midpoint of sleep shifted earlier by exactly 23 minutes. This actively cures modern social jet lag. You know, that groggy, heavily misaligned feeling you get when your biological clock is completely out of sync with your alarm clock. Morning light regulates those cortisol curves and physically primes you for daily energy.
Finally, Section 5, the modern solar protocol. Let's map out how to actually apply all this science into a practical daily blueprint.
We've consolidated everything we've talked about into this one unified framework. UVA light triggers nitric oxide, optimizing your heart health and lowering that blood pressure. UV light synthesizes vitamin D and triggers endorphins, supporting your bones and driving that natural sun-seeking behavior. And bright visible daylight enters the eye to trigger serotonin, optimizing your micromental health and setting the stage for your nighttime melatonin. Every single spectrum has a distinct, absolutely vital biological purpose in this interconnected web.
Oh, and a quick, fascinating bonus fact for you here. Controlled sunlight also heavily upregulates your innate immune system. UVB exposure causes your skin cells to release antimicrobial peptides, like cathelicidin. This physically acts as an invisible chemical shield right on your skin, disrupting bacterial membranes and viral envelopes. It's a localized immune response driven entirely by light. Okay, so here is your definitive, research-backed masterclass protocol. You absolutely do not need to bake in the sun. You just need 5 to 15 minutes of daily, graded exposure. Prioritize morning light before 10 a.m. to lock in that circadian rhythm. Expose your arms, your hands, and your face. Crucially, avoid window glass, because glass actually filters out those essential UVB rays. And finally, while we always respect the sun, definitely use sunscreen for extended outdoor durations to prevent skin cancer. You've got to allow your body those first unprotected 10 minutes to activate these ancient biological pathways.
So, I'll leave you with this. We have built an incredible, highly advanced modern world, but in doing so, we've placed ourselves in biological darkness. Your brain, your heart, your gut, your sleep, they are all desperately listening for a signal from a star millions of miles away. So how will you adapt your daily routine to give your body the full-spectrum light it biologically demands? Think about that the next time you decide to have your morning coffee inside instead of just stepping out the front door. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and as always, stay curious.